last time we were talking about are humans becoming obsolete, that was when probably like at the beginning of the pandemic,
Yeah, like
2021.
2019. When we first started in 2019, in 2020, we came up with the follow-up.
Yeah, so now with the rise of artificial intelligence and all that stuff, how do you feel about that question? Are humans becoming obsolete?
Obsolete, I wouldn't say so because we already got to the 8 billion mark. Even though that was kind of actually a couple of years ahead of what was predicted about 15, 20 years ago. But are we going to become obsolete? No, but probably the way we live has become antiquated and outdated, probably. But I think that's probably the same thing that's happened over the years during different phases over different periods of time.
So you like saying you're comparing this to like saying like when agriculture kind of died and we went to an industrial revolution, and when and probably most recently like a lot of manufacturing jobs are starting to die off too because of robotics, or like even manufacturing jobs in the United States started getting shifted to China, and so we're manufacturing is in China. So is that what you're saying is happening?
Yeah, that's basically.
Okay.
Exactly. That's basically what I'm saying. I'm saying that, yeah, as time goes on, we're constantly finding ourselves having to reinvent ourselves or readapt or come up with something, come up with some type of, how can I say, compromise to live with that type of system. Like you said before, where agriculture was basically, done by hand or with the power of animals. Then it became much more industrialized. But in some cases like that, you still have a lot of, how do you say, local produce and things that are still eaten, sold, and marketed even today, alongside with this agricultural industry. If one is more prevalent or one is more bountiful than the other, that's a different discussion. But yeah, we also, for example, we think about the fact of going from industrialized, even as far as natural gases and things like that, where we used to have miners working in the coal mines, digging up coal, So, things change, and we usually find different ways to adapt to it and live with it,
So do you think this is just the same as any other revolution, or it might be a little bit different?
And that's a very big question. Exactly. That's probably the biggest question that I had. Because don't you think that like in the past, yeah, we had those new, how can I say, those technological jumps, but nothing has ever had that potentiality to completely obliterate the previous system. So like even when we went from records to audio cassettes, there's still audio, there's still records around, what I'm saying? There's still vinyl around, and even for that first period when CDs came out, even though CDs had been out for a while, there were still audio cassettes around. There were still audio cassette recorders and things like that. But like you said though, but with AI, it can completely revolutionize where it can make everything, the way of doing things now, completely obsolete. We talked about this off camera about, how it's affected so many different sectors, and that in the future, well, basically the way we live now, the way we do things now, in the future, there will be very, very few things that will require human, how can I say, human intervention. For example, like you said, in the healthcare industry, when it comes to diagnosing different pathogens or different pathologies and things like that. When it comes to even law, if the law is cut and dry, you can teach a program to judge a case indifferently to giving all of the parameters of what the case is to convict or to release someone based on their innocence.
Wow, very, very interesting. But I like what you said about the music industry, and even taking it a step further. Like after CDs, there was streaming music, and so I
Yeah,
think that's kind of like where we're at with artificial intelligence. 'Cause like from CDs to streaming music, where you had to go to the record store, Tower Records, and buy a CD for $9.99, from paying $9.99 a month to having unlimited music was like
yes,
was a
exactly.
quantum leap. And
Yes.
I think that's going to be like a comparable analysis of what's going on with the AI now, because we're going from like being able to have, just a little bit of analysis to like analysis of everything instantly
Exactly.
almost.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
with data, I mean, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but even just like, I'm thinking even like quantum computing, when quantum computing comes around in AI, you'd be able to like, be able to like really formulate what is dark matter, what is ether,
Exactly.
like,
Exactly. Exactly.
that's been theorized for years and they've been trying to formulate what is dark matter, even though 98% of our universe is dark matter. With quantum computing and AI, they'll be able to figure that out, and then maybe space traveling will be much easier to do. So,
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely, no, definitely, definitely. Even today, we're at a stage where we can travel at what is it, 34 times the speed that we were able to just a mere 35 years ago. So who knows, what I'm saying, with the help of quantum computing and things like that. And you said you'll talk about that later, and we can talk about that later. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, like I said, talking about being able to stream things, it makes things so much, and that's what I think that's overall, even though people who develop artificial intelligence and other things of the sort, I know that for the most part, or at least what they try to sell us, the fact of how it can benefit us, whether it's from a health perspective or even if it's a quality of life thing. Like you said before, we had to go to stores and buy CDs, and I think that's another question that we could open up. That we don't have to do that anymore. Is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? I don't know. But the thing is that we can still, now at the point where we have those same that same information, same technology, same tangibility that we can do at a much faster and much more plentiful rate as we can with AI, with streaming services, and the sorts. And those are some of the positive things they were thinking about. How, for example, even Neuralink is trying to be able to tap into those parts of the brain that are active, but they're not communicating with those parts of the body for people who may be paraplegic or have spinal problems, things like that. These are things that are revolutionary. This is as big as, I hate to say it, I'm not a biologist or a doctor, but I could see this potentially being as big as penicillin was for us, in the formulation of antibiotics. Antibiotics changed the way we lived, our quality of life. Healthcare drastically went, in its since its conception.
we went
Before
from
that, people
living
were dying.
40 years old to living up to 70 years old.
Exactly, exactly. People were dying from just a little cough. And people were dying. They got cut, on a piece of glass that was, saying they got infected and they were just dying. And now, you have people. We were able to transplant organs from one person to another person with a particular antibiotic cycle, being able to survive it and live longer. So those are always good things to think about. But I have a question. Actually, I have two questions for you, Rich, because like we said, we talk about the positive things, and we know that there should be positive things with all new forms of innovation. But what's the extreme? So, for example, we learn about quantum fusion, or about fusion of particles. We learn that, okay, it's possible to or fission. Sorry, we learn that it's possible to separate particles, and then from those ideals, from those concepts, the atom bomb was created. Right. So, and we can say that was completely benevolent. That was quite malicious. What happened. But using AI, using these type of new technologies, going towards a technological singularity, what problems do you think that can create from a negative point of view? What are some of the biggest cons you think
Well,
that come
I
from it?
think just for us, like you're saying, maybe you think our quality of life is going to improve, or maybe it might not improve. I think we're already we're such consumers in our society. Now we're going to be
Okay.
even just more consumers, because it's going to be just so much more entertainment, so much more everything, and it's like maybe some people
So
would
you think
never
we?
even leave the house. It's kind of as if we're like in a wheelchair, not an
Okay.
actual wheelchair, but we're kind of like we're like the allegory of the cave.
Okay. Okay.
We're in a
But don't
symbolic
you? But
wheelchair now because of the fact that we have so much information, so much
yes.
entertainment at the palm of our hands now, that we don't get out and do anything. We don't have to do anything anymore. We don't have to work anymore. We can make, we don't, if AI really is what they say it is, a lot of jobs the jobs will become obsolete. Maybe not humans, but jobs will become obsolete. And then that goes to like the question of like, what really drives us as human beings?
Okay. Okay.
Are we just consumers? I
Yeah.
think now that we have so much entertainment now, so much food, so much varieties of everything you can think of now in 2023, think how it's going to be in 2053.
Yeah.
Now, back in the days, people had to like struggle to get to like, just to get to to get food. You know what I'm saying? Like, you think about it, people were hunter gatherers. That's
Hmm.
not really too long ago, and our nervous system is still kind of wired that way. So
Okay. Okay.
there's that might be a disconnect. Our nervous system might is not going to probably go as
Okay.
fast
So.
as our environment is gonna
Okay.
go as fast as our
Okay.
environment is gonna grow. And then
Okay.
maybe that's why a lot of people are more anxious than ever now. What do you think is gonna happen 30 years from now, when it's just
Okay.
like you can just pretty much put on your goggles and never leave the house ever? Maybe do a
Exactly.
little bit of work.
Exactly.
You have your little AI chatbot do all your assignments and work for the day,
Okay.
and you're done. You know what I'm saying? And maybe a
Okay.
lot of jobs might be like artificially created by the government just to keep us thinking that we have something to do, so we can have some type of drive in life, or
Exactly. And that's something that I would like to brush up on later on, later on as the conversation develops. All right. So, do you think that in that case, and do you think that, are you saying that humanity or society we will start to lose track of what keeps us human, in the sense that, for example, today we have the idea of, one of the things that, one of our driving factors is the fact that, okay, if I don't work, I'm unable to supply for my family, or if I don't go out and, like you said before, hunt or gather food, I'm unable to support for my family. If I don't wake up, if I don't help this, if I don't do this, then, it's that sense of being finite. We know that life is not infinite. We know that
Yes.
that bonds are not infinite, and that being finite, that's one of the things that drive us, to always become better, or become, or exceed ourselves. Also, I think that's probably one of the main reasons why a lot of people, deep down, we kind of feel for, a revolution, or even an evolution of technology inside of us, or whether it's, saying externally or internally, because I think that it helps, it contributes, while at the same time destroys. So it's detrimental to the ideal of longevity, of being finite, creating our longevity. I don't know if you see what I'm saying, but I think that also what you were saying too. I don't know, like I said, because I think again, that the path that we're taking now is just so immense that I think that it's very, very unpredictable. But I think that also, at least when we think about, you talked about the saturation of media and content, and I agree with you completely. But there's still the choice, though. A lot of people still don't use the internet or computers as much as most people do, the average person. Okay, obviously they remain back in the times. You can imagine, someone's great aunts or somebody's grandparents who doesn't even have a smartphone. They had like, those phones, those old Nokias with like the big buttons on them, but they still survive, because someone around them is using that technology. So do you think that AI being such a, like you said before, a big crutch for on our lives? Do you think that that some people will be able to survive without being dependent on it, even if they are surrounded by or near people who are? I don't know if you see what I'm saying. I don't know if that's
exactly what you're saying. It's kind of like if it's like that movie Robots with what's it, Ewan McGregor and Halle Berry, the cartoon.
I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that.
Well, yeah, that's a great.
I've always wanted to.
Basically, the old robots didn't get the upgrade, so they just couldn't survive in the system. And it's pretty much it's like even our own mother, she needs to do stuff, and she don't even know how to use a smartphone and stuff like that. It's like almost it's going to be hard to survive if you don't know how to use some of this technology, unless you live in
someone around you.
What do you say?
Okay. But even if you have someone around you who does know how to use things, like for example, if you take, for example, speaking of our mom, so a lot of people might be immigrants to a different country, where like the one who immigrated might live in that country for tens of years and not speak the language well, but their children speaks very well, especially when you go to like these small communities, like, I don't know, little Italy's or like a Dominican village or quarters in a big city, usually the grandmother, the abuela or the nonna, they probably don't speak that language or English, for example, if they're in New York, but their children, their grandchildren and children do, and they're able to survive still, aren't they?
Well, yeah, if you have that community, yes, then communities, teams win championships. So if you have a community, you can be able to survive a lot better. But people that don't have that community, that don't have that team, and especially if you live in a big city, or not even a big city, a somewhat big of a city, if you don't have the basic technological skills, it's going to be very hard for you to function.
No, I see what you mean. I agree with you completely. In fact, my example was in the event that you had someone around you to help you out, because like you said,
it's like it's just like it's like I was in Italy recently. It's like if I didn't have you, I couldn't speak Italian. So for me, I was very limited to what I could do. Everyone spoke Italian, so if everyone speaks like Instagram or Chat GPT and whatnot.
Exactly. Okay.
If you want to speak Chat GPT, you're gonna be at a major disadvantage. So
Well, one of the things I was thinking about, because again, it's something that we agreed to off camera just a couple of days ago about more or less about what we're going to talk about. And, I didn't really prepare anything as far as research goes, but I guess got to thinking and meditating and contemplating on this this podcast, this chat we were going to have, because I wanted to give a different aspect to what I had before. Because before I was just giving my off the cuff, hot answers. But that was, again, like we said, that was 3 years ago. Many things have changed since then. Even my perspective of things have changed. But one of the main things I wanted to know was one of the big philosophical questions is that let's say this. I was always on the fence. I was always pro and con AI. I've always been that way. My take in the past was the fact that I think the only way that we can, avoid being overtaken, even if that's a possibility, is to integrate ourselves also. That's been my take, and that still remains my take. But I was more negative towards AI than positive, but now I would say I'm more positive towards AI by the simple fact that so many people are terrified of AI. But why are we terrified of AI if it's us, humanity, that's creating? Do you see what I'm saying? How can we be so scared of something that we are the makers of, or the future makers of?
But eventually AI will start living a life all on its own, and it's already probably start doing that. I think it's starting to take on a life of its own, if you want to call it a life.
But don't we do that? Don't we do that as humans? However, we leave our parents bring us up, and we move on. I don't see, but it's not. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a negative thing, though. Your parents can look at you as a threat.
That's, I think that's comparing apples to oranges. I don't think that, another human to another human,
Okay.
they're pretty much very similar. Like our parents are pretty similar to us. We might be more educated, more whatever, because of just life conditions, life situation. But we created AI, and AI is so much, it has the potentiality of being so much greater than us from a data analysis, robotic viewpoint.
Okay.
We can go into what consciousness is and all that stuff. And maybe in some way it can be as aware as we are, and infinitely. So, yeah.
No, definitely. I'm not saying that that's not a possibility, but what my thing is what would that really be a problem though? I mean,
I think it goes back. It goes to two things. I think one thing, like we talked about earlier and discussed, is like we would lose a sense of purpose in life, wouldn't we? Or will our purpose just to be consumers?
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have the Terminator Matrix type scenario where maybe AI determines that we are not really so needed in our society anymore, and we become kind of like dogs, a pet, a domesticated pet. Or maybe
in that case, I think that. In that case, I think that even unknowingly, because I still don't think that AI has got to the point where it's where it is conscious, or even data systems are even conscious of what they're doing. But I think that we are already in that space where we don't choose content anymore. I had a friend who was with me in the military. Man, we stay in contact even to this day. We don't agree on a lot of things, but he's a good person. We've been through a lot together. And I remember, but one thing is that he always talks to me because we usually have such different approaches or views of life. And he always asks me, like, give me some new videos or give me some new content to look at from my point of view. And I share some with him, he shares some with me. I probably watch less of his things than fewer things of his than he does of mine. Because he's always trying to build his repertoire of content. And I also asked him, I said, why do you do that? Because he told me, he said, because I don't want my algorithms to constantly feed me what I like. You know what I'm saying? So we're at that point now where I can watch YouTube endlessly for 2 or 3 months nonstop and watch only things that I like without coming past one thing. I would have to search for something, and it wouldn't even show up in my suggestions, and each time I search something that's similar, it keeps bringing me closer to that edge, and we talked about this with politics over the summer, you and I, but it's like now that before where we had two sides, but things from both sides bled over to the other side. Now, because of the content that we receive on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and the algorithm, it keeps showing people who are left wing, more things that are left wing, people who are right wing showing things much more right wing. And now there's no more connect. So there's a complete disconnect now without this emergence of conscious, let's say this sentient conscious AI, So do we really choose our content? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think it goes even to a bigger question, like, do we just choose in general? Because, even before, algorithms told us what to do, we always had groupthink mentality also. We always followed what the group did, our tribe followed. Saying so.
But there was always some kind of, breathe over.
We've always been kind of like polarized to some degree.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
Now with social media and, we're polarized collectively as a whole so much more easily by big corporations and by politicians and governments and lobbyist groups and whatnot. So, it's always interesting. I think as humans in general, we always take ourselves way too seriously. We think we're so important. And I even have a bigger. This is definitely look hippy dippy and trippy, but this already has happened. I believe this already happened. Maybe not on this planet, but on other planets and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
That are probably much more advanced than us. That's some Carl Sagan type contact type
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So
No, exactly. Exactly.
we're keeping three-dimensional today.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
but,
Okay. Now
but I
imagine
just I
two-dimensional
just think
objects.
that, of course, everything influences us, and so making what is really a choice? I mean, that's a hard question to say because everything influences us, Us ourselves, we're kind of like programmed or like computers. We're programmed by so much information, so much data and stuff like that, so many suggestions. We're triggered by things that we're not even conscious of a lot of times, by things that maybe our parents said to us when we were a little kid or something like that. So,
Well,
so
definitely. We're psychologically wired.
now the polarization, now the choice making is just becoming much more obvious now because we have algorithms, we have social media really just obviously directing us to make certain choices in certain directions. So, so in a way we are kind of, we always kind of are slaves to our environment and domesticated by our environment. But I just think now it's just becoming at a much more accelerated rate with technology. And definitely.
In fact, now that I think about it, because like I told you, I didn't do research, but I remember actually reading this a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, just to show how much. And this is again, as I was saying before, where we get the people or the main ideal of something doing, creating something, improving something for the betterment of man, and sometimes for the betterment of ourselves. From an individual egocentric point of view or egotistical point of view. Even, for example, I know that Saudi Arabia they made a plan to invest up to $320 billion, United States dollars, by the year 2030 in only AI. So because they realize how far behind the curve they are compared to the West and their AI's advancements over the years. So being able to invest so much, putting so much into that, obviously there are benefits because, money breeds competition breeds advancement and improvement, at least that's how we've always, that's how we've been so far over the past 300, 400, 500,000 years, as a race, the more we have competition, the more we're able to improve, So, like,
But
I guess our evolution has become more, I'm going to say, action based than environmental based because we've always been, after we became hunter gatherers and we became actually people ended up settling. We realized that we could adapt ourselves to the environment without having to adapt our bodies to the environment like other animals, other species. But we've always evolved from I don't want to say an intellectual point of view, but based off how we acted and reacted to situations, So just seeing how much countries are willing to put into this type of technology, I think that says a lot about where we will be going very soon, or where we already are.
I mean, we already are on that path no matter what. And I think we're at a point of no turning back. I know that right now in the United States, they're having big, meetings, closed door meetings with, the Elon Musk and the Bill Gates and whatnot.
And how do you think that should play out though? But should they be closed door meetings? That's what I'm saying, because this is something that already I know one of the biggest debates is that a problem with AI is that, okay, it can have a very, very, very positive effect for our improvement of life, of health, thinking even, we can even use it to help us expand our minds even from an intellectual point of view. But the biggest debate is that who's going to be in control of these things, so when we have these big companies right now, the Teslas, the Microsoft, the Virgin companies, the Amazon companies behind closed doors, this means that they're just going to continue to stay behind closed doors, and that room is going to be smaller with fewer correspondents, fewer participants, I think. No?
I agree with you, but I think also there's probably a lot of stuff that they're definitely not probably there's definitely a lot
Yes,
of stuff that they're not telling us. So
for
I
sure, for sure.
I think that they have the closed doors pretty much to probably kind of like protect us in some ways because
That's good. I think so too. This could
I,
be a way to
I
stay
think
ahead
people
and to
panic.
stay ahead of the curve. No, no, I
You know,
definitely think that,
people panic really easily already. People are already freaked out already. It's like now
and, this,
in Los
and that's what I
Angeles.
was saying. Yeah,
We
exactly.
have
That's
the
what I'm saying.
writers
People panic.
the writers are worried that AI is going to take over their jobs and stuff like that. And
No,
so
definitely. I think that. Yeah, I think also. Sorry, I was saying. I think that also, yes, these closed door meetings are also necessary. Let's say, saying objectively speaking, because also they might want to be able to stay ahead of the curve. Saying of things, and I think that like you said, there are a lot of things that's going on that we don't know about. That probably they are, probably 2 or 3 phases ahead of the rest of society as far as AI goes. So even though we're worried about some things, they've already figured that out. But and they can only continue figuring that out by having closed door meetings. I understand that, but at the same time, that just makes them that much more indispensable. You understand?
who's indispensable? The Bill Gates of the
Indispensable.
world.
Make these big companies, those who are behind closed doors, more indispensable. You understand? So it
In
is
what
giving more
way?
power to those few, and leaving the others, the majority, out of the loop. Even though yes, sometimes we need to be out of the loop for our protection, but we also need to have at least access to the loop in some way. And this way, when you constantly have closed door meetings, you're kind of keeping, you're kind of like not giving people access or inclusion to that loop potentially. You understand?
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think
Because
in our technological age, I think we have, I think it's always been closed doors throughout history.
yeah,
That's
no, definitely, yes,
you want to say Illuminati this, Illuminati that. There's always been secret societies.
yeah,
That's just
definitely. But for this,
the way society works. You know what I'm
no,
saying?
definitely. But as you
That's the
said,
way
but this is
human,
next level though. This is next level.
the next level. But we've always had these secret sections and whatnot. But I think
Yeah,
now we have more access to information than ever before because of technology.
definitely,
We know a lot more than we can, but I think we're manipulated more than ever too. So it keeps people still in their bubble of information. They're not expanding and trying to learn other information. They're just like, oh, this is what I'm listening to CNN. This is
exactly,
what I'm listening to
exactly,
Fox.
exactly. That was actually that was actually my next question. I was going to say that now because of being, we're already kind of manipulated into what we watch based off of algorithms, based off of our browsing cookies or whatnot. And, and I'm thinking that, and also they're being also research on the fact of how much, I'm not sure the exact percentage, but it's a rather scary percentage. I think it's like 5 or 6%. It seems like a little, but 5 or 6% of news that's out there on the internet, easily accessible, first 5 or 6 picks in your Google browser when you do a Google search that are laced with fake news. So if I am being informed, but I'm being informed with what? This deep fake interview. So we have deep fakes. Which look almost exactly the same, having the same facial structures, the same mannerisms of that person you're trying to imitate. That makes things scary.
It's very scary. So like the information, I think the information is there, but the smoke screens and the false doors are much more prevalent now, especially when it
Yeah.
comes to access of information.
Oh, definitely, definitely. But a lot of times, this information, this misleading information or false information, is created behind closed doors, though.
They
You
are
know,
crazy, but
you know,
that's always been the case. You know what I'm saying?
and even if it's not fake, for example, let's take even for example the advancements that we have in facial recognition today. Facial recognition. 20 years ago, recognition. Just 10 years ago was something just almost otherworldly. If you remember your first facial recognition app on the iPhone, to open up your iPhone, it was kind of like you could even like show a picture of yourself and it will open up, saying, and now it's so much more. They have chips that are dedicated only for the facial recognition, and a lot of cities, especially London, they have the 98% of London city on CCTV. And with that, I don't know how much of that. I don't know how much of that they can actually process through their facial recognition systems, but that's scary. And I'm not talking about just for the privacy, but for example, and I'll probably send you this link or this video. If you want later on, you can post it on this video here. But they were talking about how that there is a higher level of inaccuracy when it comes to doing facial recognition of people of colored skin, right? But that's because the AI programming only has a set number of information because it can only base things off of what it's being fed and programmed with, And they noticed that I'm not sure. I don't want to say the percentage, but when I find the video, I'll send it to you. That there's a high percentage of inaccuracies or labeling a person who is of colored skin, of dark skin, with many facial recognition apps. So the government, yes, in a sense, they are there to protect us. And like I said, I'm not saying that I'm naive, but I want to be, optimistic and saying, that they're always having, saying they may have some personal gain, but overall, our personal well-being is always in at the forefront of their priorities. But there are a lot of side effects that when you have a select few with a potential weapon such as this, where things become more how can I say, more volatile, and we could even take something more recent, such as nuclear weapons. We think about nuclear armaments. When we think about countries, and I'm not going to get into politics or things like that, but we think about, for example, a country such as Iran or North Korea, who were basically they were more or less stunted and stopped by the IEE, whatever it is. I'm not sure what it's called, the International Council for Nuclear Power or something like that. And they were basically stunted and stopped from trying to enrich uranium to make their own weapons, which I don't think is a good idea. But in the end, they're kind of saying, because the leads of these organizations are usually the countries who possess nuclear weapons. So, it's like the Americans and the Russians and the Chinese are saying, no, Iran, you can't make nuclear weapons. Only we can keep them. You understand? That kind of, saying it kind of, it overshadows, saying, I think, in my opinion, the rights of humanity, similar to, even though I don't agree so much.
Like the rights of democracy. So it's not democratic at all. It's more like
it's not democratic. I don't believe in carrying firearms, but also I believe that, for example, what we have in America, I believe that everyone has the right to, at least, or you take it away from everyone, or you give everyone an opportunity to choose. So I think that the same ideal. I think that in Western society we're a bit oxymoronic and contradictory and hypocritical in this sense. We want to keep the power for us, and while keeping other countries smaller. Keeping those developing countries developing.
We can be, but I don't know. Maybe there are, this is where, this is definitely where it gets a little bit, it's not so black and white, and definitely very gray. Some people are just bad actors, and they can't have weapons of mass destruction, or it just won't be good for the rest of the world. I mean,
but who are we to say that though?
That's
to say that, especially if we've already used it.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. And that's the same thing when we talk about these technologies. They may say, for example, governments may say, okay, we have, behind closed doors, we have the possibility to, create sentient AI. Should we let the public know? No, because the public doesn't even know that. But they're creating, So, that's when we get to the case with, okay, yeah, you got AI under control, but how much am I able to access that same control you have, Because just because, as I said before, because of based on software and many facial recognition much of the facial recognition software that's out there, they don't have applicable or sufficient data to have a lower error rate when identifying people of color. But if they had more information, they could. But it's them that's controlling it. They can say, you know what, system, shut down until we have more information, more data to give you on people of all color, people of all heights, men, women, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, obese people, thin people, things like that, So from one point of view, like we said before, it can help us with a lot of things, but if you're out there using it from a way that you are only programming it, because that's what we said before in the end.
Only a small group of people are only programming it.
Yes, exactly. If you're programming, you're going to program it, obviously, probably for the betterment of people, but you're going to make sure that you leave that back door for yourself to have the biggest benefit of all, no? Wouldn't you think so?
I mean, that's when some people are kind of like they're like I ain't gonna say like they're gods, but they're like a small group of people are becoming like kings or queens for everybody else because they kind of dictate, what's right for some people and what's right for other people, what's right to keep behind closed doors and what's not right to keep behind closed doors. Now, I have one question. I think we'll end on this note. Do you think we need to get that much better as a society anyway, when it comes to intelligence or what we have already? Or do you think we're good as it is?
We are good as we are, but I think that, and I think this is more of the parents' mentality. It's kind of like, for example, most parents say, "Oh, the music nowadays of their children sucks," But for sure, our parents said it about us. Their parents said it about them. Exactly. Or for example, some of the things that we used to do in the past. So, for example, books were burned in the past if you were reading books. And so a lot of people didn't read, but then that next generation came on, they started reading. And then the generation after that, 2 or 3 generations out, why don't children read as much as they used to in the past? Because it was more of something that was kind of supply and demand. And I think, yes, there is a demand for us to use AI because we don't know it yet. That's the thing. When we think about even the smartphone and where we are now, we're really good. But we were really good 30 years ago too, though.
If explore our intelligence and our consciousness.
So if we're able to try to erase, because it's difficult for us to have lived through it, what I'm saying? But if we are able to try to erase the last 30 years and we think of ourselves back in the early 90s, late 80s, we realize that it was very good. I mean, even from a political and economic point of view, and most of the world was doing well. Apart from those heavy hit, war torn, countries, a lot of those are doing better now, thanks to saying this constant wanting to be better. And that's what I said at the beginning, is the fact that we want to get better. So, like I said, I think that there's space for us to improve with this. With this improvement, at the same time, it takes away from our mortality. Will we, if we can live forever, will we have a will to wake up tomorrow morning? Will we know that tomorrow morning is going to be the same as thousands of other mornings that we've had? Is love going to be something for us because of the fact that you want to stay with this person because you know that you won't be with that person forever? But if you know that you're going to be with that person forever, will it be that way? Will it be that will you be able to live that fully? But those are more
free stuff is never appreciated.
Exactly. So, I think that, yes, it is going to work for us for the better. It could possibly work out for the worse, but like I said, I'm not as pessimistic as I was in the past. The main thing is I try to look at it in 3 ways. I try to think of the ideals of the benefits of it, the deception that can be caused by big companies, big corporations, etc., and the exclusion of all people. You understand? I think that all people, or the inclusion of all people. I think that everyone, it should go. Probably at the moment right now, it's some people are rejecting. Yeah, I think that's natural. Most
changes,
most changes. Even Gandhi said, change goes through 3 phases. Rejection, or first denial, rejection, and then, rejection, opposition, and then it's finally accepted as something normal, you know. So I think that, you know, this rejection, we're at that phase now where a lot of people are really rejecting it. And I think that's probably what I was up until 4 years ago. I wasn't completely, but I think that for the most part, I said, kind of like you said just a few moments ago, yeah, we'll be better, but do we need to be that much better? You know, I mean, still don't think that we need to, but who knows, you know, for generations to come, we might say, well, that was that moment that we needed, you know, that was that origin point. And I think the final thing is, you know, for how will this integrate us with it, or together or separate, into the future contemporary society, you know? Just like, you know, saying, for example, with the mobile phones are fantastic, smartphones are fantastic, but they have integrated into society, right? You understand? It's not something that, it was definitely revolutionary, probably the most revolutionary thing since, probably, as far as technology goes, probably as the car, maybe, I think, personally, in my opinion, because the smartphone came at the right time. You know, we already finally started to grasp the shrinking and our proficiency of, you know, of semiconductor technology. At the same time, search engines were becoming bigger. At the same time, a lot of people wanted to film or to share that experience.
With selling the data became much more.
Yeah. So the infrastructure was already there for mobile phones, even though no one really predicted it to have, you know, that type of impact. The thing is that I think that we're creating a infrastructure around AI. I think that might be the correct thing to do, or it might not be the correct thing to do. I kind of look at it as refurbishing the house. For example, if you're remodeling a house, do you want to measure the restoration to the furniture, or do you want to buy furniture based off of the restoration? You understand? Yeah. So, you know, in the past, you know, like, for example, the new technologies, for example, cars, we already had roads, so it was that moment for it to happen. You know, smartphones, everything was in place, perfect for it to, you know, take over. You know, because mobile phones, the ideal mobile phones started in the 1970s with IBM, you know, or with IBM with Motorola. So, but it didn't really take off until 40 years later, you know. So,
you have to have good timing, and the rest of the infrastructure has to be there for you.
But right now we're trying to build infrastructure around AI, and that could be a good thing, because we can probably, you know, I don't know, probably restrain it more, or, you know, I don't know, reform it more. But I don't know. I don't remember the last time we really, you know, saying modernized or restructure something around the technology. You understand? Whereas we always had technologies which
computers in general. Computers, don't you think computers were like that? So computers, we kind of everything is.
No, because the need for computers, like you said before, do we need AI really? You know what I'm saying? Let's apart from, you know, particular companies and organizations like NASA and the healthcare industry, but, you know, but in society, do we really need AI? You know, because for computers, most people still did work. They did clerical work or administrative work that the computer made much easier for them. You know, right? But in reality, for me personally, the life that I live now, probably the life that you live yourself, and 98% of society, AI could help us out, but does it really help us out? You know what I'm saying? At the moment, AI is not going to wake me up in the morning and get me dressed and take me to work. You understand? You know, and it's one of those type of things that I remember from the second Matrix, when Neo was talking to the councilman of the elders, and he was saying the irony of the fact that, you know, the machines in Zion was help keeping them alive. So, you know, it's strange about the fact that, you know, the humans relied on machines, but at the same time, other machines were trying to kill them, you know. So, but I don't think about it like that, but I think about it like, you know, we rely on machines, and machines rely on us to bring them forward also. You know, so I think it is a type of symbiosis that we have to always, I think we have to work together with it, you know. know what I'm saying? Personally. But like I said before, there just needs, I think there needs to be more inclusion for all people, I think, in some way.
with
You understand?
with the data and all that stuff. Yeah.
With dates and things like that. I mean, like you said before, if we go to a UBI where we can stay at home more often, work a little bit less, or work a lot less, work just a little bit, and have AI and have computers and technology work for us, that's fine. But when you're constantly, you're making, a lot of these companies, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Amazons, you're making, 0.3 cents off of me just by sharing my cookies, to other advertising companies. You may say, okay, that's only 0.303 cents, but you multiply that by billions, and they're making tons of money off of us, and we're just using, we think the internet is free, but it's not, like you said, some of the best things are free, and the things that we think are free, the things that we are free are actually costing us, you know what I'm saying? It's a small bit of ourselves each time, so that's the way I look at it, I'm not the one of those type of tinfoil hat wearing people who say, yo, there's a conspiracy, they're all trying to get us. No, not at all. But, if you're going to use me, what I'm saying, as Dave Chappelle said, in all perpetuity of my image, what I'm saying, as cookies and things like that, I should be included in that, I should be included in that, and by you excluding me from that, that's just a sign. And this is blatant. So if there's something behind closed doors, who knows what you're keeping from, So that's what I'm saying, already there's the shadiness, the wide open, blatant shadiness. So who knows what type of shadiness happens where no one's watching.